Today we're going to be doing 2.1, which is on the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So first we're going to be able to find the midpoint and we're going to be able to find the distance. So this is still geometry, but we're going to be doing a lot of algebra today. Let me explain kind of what we're physically doing. Here's my line. Given these 2 points, like Delta Math is going to say, you know, this is 5,2 and this one's 7,1 or whatever, you know, given 2 points, I can find the middle point, the point directly in the middle. And not only that, but I can find how far these 2 points are from each other. Okay, so distance, how far they are, midpoint, what is the point directly in the middle. Okay, we're just going to do this one here on the video because this one leads us into the distance formula very well because it's asking for us to find the distance. Okay, this is using the Pythagorean theorem method. So if we remember, I'm not going to try and write out Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, how this works is I've got my c line. This is my hypotenuse. And if I want to find the distance between the two, I need to get the rise and the run. Okay, if we count this, it is 7 spaces, and from here to here is 9 spaces. And how this works is, that's my A, that's my B, I'm trying to find C. So I'm going to plug them into my Pythagorean theorem. And then I need to solve for C. So 7 squared plus 9 squared, if I plug that into my calculator, is 130. Okay, 130 equals c squared because I haven't done anything with this yet. I need the c squared to just be a c. How we do this is we cancel out the squared by doing a square root. Okay, square root and squared cancel each other out. So I'm left with just c all by itself, which is awesome. And I'm left with square root of 130, which if we put that into our calculator, that is the same as 11.401 ... But this question and all your questions on your homework, they're going to ask you to round to the nearest tenth. Tenth is the 4. So I'm going to look at my friend. My final answer will be 11.4 equals C. So I know that the distance between these 2 points, because I knew how tall, because I knew the rise and the run, I knew that this was 11.4. This exact same concept is put into this formula. So just to notice some similarities, notice I've got some squares and a plus sign. And when I'm done with all of everything inside, I have to square root everything. So those are just a couple really quick similarities, but what I'm trying to say is that the distance formula that we're going to be using for the remainder of this unit is, this is from the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, and it looks really big and really scary, and we've got these x2s and y2s and stuff, and what I think is that it ends up being easier. This ends up being less in the calculator, because if we did this in our calculator, it'd be like 3 steps, 2 or 3 steps, and plugging this whole thing in, it's just one big step. So it just depends on what you like. Okay, so Notice we have x2 and x1 and y2 and y1. This is just naming the points because we have...
Teachers, pardon the interruption. Will you please...
We have, come on, x value and y value in our first point, and a x value and a y value in our second point. Okay, whoop, that just went away. x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so the 1s and 2s, they just mean first and second point. Okay, there's nothing fancy after that. We're just distinguishing between this point and this one. And we're going to plug them into our formula. So I'm going to keep it on the screen. We're just going to copy exactly what we see. And anytime that there's x2, y2, we're going to put in the number instead of x1 or whatever. Okay, so I've got my square root and I've got my parenthesis. First thing we will show like this. First thing is x2. I have here that x2 equals 4. Okay, minus x1 is 1. Close the parenthesis and square it. Plus, open a new parenthesis, and now I'm right here. y2 minus y1. Notice I have y2, negative 5, minus negative 7. Okay, your calculator is perfectly fine with this. But just remember that this could also be all the same stuff, but two negatives make a positive. So both of these are correct. In one, we just simplified two negatives, okay? But they are the same thing. Okay, plug those in to your calculator and see what you get. I need an answer right there. Next thing is the midpoint formula. So we still have x1s and x2s because we're still given 2 points. But we're going to plug them into a different formula because we're not trying to find the distance anymore. We're trying to find the middle. Okay, and when we find the middle, we are then going to write it as an ordered pair. So here is what that looks like. Okay, I will just rewrite the formula. XM stands for x value of the midpoint. Same way x1 is first x value plus second x value. Okay. My x values are always the first numbers in the ordered pair. So I've got negative 3 and 3. I'm just going to plug those in because this is my x1, y1 and x2, y2. I'm just going to plug negative 3 and 3 into my formula over 2. Okay, negative 3 plus 3 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Okay, and then I would just do the exact same thing, but with the y values. So now we'll do it in a different color and everything. We'll do this red. Now I'm going to do all the y values. It's the same formula except a bunch of y's. Okay, so I'm going to do 6 plus 0 divided by 2. 6 plus 0 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, 0 and 3 by themselves, that's great. Those are absolutely the correct numbers, but Delta Math wants it written as a point because it is a point. It is the midpoint, the point directly in the middle of these two. So I need to write it as a point in Delta Math. This is what Delta Math wants. Okay. Try this one out. I want to see the work. Decimals are okay. This is our answer. So that's what you're shooting for, but I need to see the work. Okay, last thing. This is the weirdest one. but we're still using the midpoint formula. The only difference now is instead of being given endpoints, I am given, we'll show the question. I'm given the midpoint, and I'm given one of the endpoints. So midpoint, this is going to be xm, ym, right? X value of the midpoint, y value of the midpoint, and x1, y1. So I'm going to use the same formula that I did just up there with the midpoint formula, except I'm going to plug things in a little bit of a different way. Okay, so step one is plug in numbers. Your numbers will be xm and x1, ym and y1. Okay, so xm I see is -4 equals x1 is -6. I don't know what x2 is. That's what I'm trying to find now. Right? I'm trying to find the coordinate of b. And I'm going to divide that by 2 because that's in my formula. From here, I need to solve for x2 because that's what I don't know. So I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides because I have a divide by 2. So these cancel out, which is awesome because then I don't have to do any math. So step 2 is multiply by 2. And what that does is it gets rid of my division, and I am left with -8 equals -6 plus x2. And then from here, step 3 is add or subtract the remaining number. So there will always be a number here. So sometimes it'll be 3, sometimes it'll be 12, whatever. Right now it's -6. So to get -6 to the other side, because it's negative, I need to add 6 to both sides. And that is step 3. So I'm left with x2 equals -2. Okay? I'll show that one more time with this question, and we're going to follow the steps. Okay? xm equals x1 plus x2 over 2, and ym equals y1 plus y2 over 2. Those are my midpoint formulas. So x value of the midpoint is 7. I know that because it tells me. I'm not having to come up with that on my own. Okay? And x1, that means the x value of the one midpoint, the one endpoint that they gave me, is 8. Okay, and from here I'm going to solve. This is step 2, multiply by 2. I'm left with 14 equals 8 plus x2. And then step 3 is I subtract or add the remaining number. Because 8 is positive, I'm going to subtract. I'm left with x2 equals 6. Okay. So there's my x value. Y values. I've got my midpoint y value is -2. y1 is 3. So I'm just getting that from my question. And now my steps. Multiply by 2 on both sides. That cancels out. On my right side, I'm left with 2 times -2, which is -4, equals 3 plus y2. My 3 is positive, secret positive, so that means I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. When we plug this into our calculator, we get -4 minus 3 is -7 equals y2. Remember the 2's here, they're just the name. We're not doing any math with them. That's just telling us that this is the second x value and the second y value. And lastly, I need to write it as a point, right? Because it is an end point. Delta Math wants it as a point. So that is our answer. Okay. Email me or talk to me before after school if you have any questions. Thank you so much.